take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the globe to bring you the latest developments in medical cannabis, adult marijuana, industrial hemp, and spiritual ganja.
We love the herb.
It's time for the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville. Now, here's your host, Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Wednesday, July 19th, 2017, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome to the program. So glad to have you here because we have got plenty to get to on today's show. Coming up in our first segment, in the Reformer's Reader, we're going to be speaking with DJ Jason Big Kush Berry. He's worked with some of the biggest legends in weed and hip hop, and we're going to talk about his love affair with weed and hip hop. It's all a part of his new book, Married to Marijuana. So that's coming up in the first segment. Then in our second segment, we've got audio of speeches from not one, but two state senators in the state of Georgia, Kurt Thompson and Fort, the latter of whom is running for mayor of Atlanta as well. Plus, we've got Compassionate Atlanta's Gareth Young, who will be speaking. The three of them in the Southeast Cannabis Chronicle, recorded at Liberty Plaza, right there at the Atlanta State Capitol on 420. Also coming up on the show, I've got shocking video and developments afterward of cops in Baltimore planting drug evidence that kept a man in jail on $50,000 bail for 6 months. You won't believe what the reaction of the prosecutor was after that. But let's get to the cannabis headline news.
This is your Cannabis Headline News. Brought to you by MarijuanaMoment.net, the complete source for all your marijuana news in one morning newsletter from Marijuana Majority Founder Tom Angel. Subscribe today for free at MarijuanaMoment.net.
This is your Cannabis Headline News for Wednesday, July 19th, 2017. I'm Russ Belville. WMUR-TV reports that penalties for possessing small amounts of marijuana in New Hampshire have been reduced. Governor Chris Sununu signed a bill Tuesday that makes possession of up to 3/4 of an ounce of marijuana and 5 grams of hashish a violation instead of a misdemeanor. The proposal passed the House and Senate in Concord with bipartisan support. New Hampshire had been the only New England state that had not decriminalized marijuana. Earlier this year, Sununu called House Bill 640, quote, common sense marijuana reform, end quote. Under the bill, any person 18 years of age or older who is convicted of possessing up to 3/4 of an ounce of marijuana or 5 grams of hashish would be guilty only of a violation, punishable by a fine of $100 for a first or second offense, or up to $300 for any subsequent offense within a 3-year period. A fourth offense would result in a Class B misdemeanor charge. Marijuana advocates are trumpeting a Colorado milestone, more than $500 million in revenue for the state since recreational cannabis sales started in 2014, according to The Cannabist. The medical and recreational cannabis tax revenue benchmark achieved in May 2017 was hailed Wednesday in a new report from VS Strategies, the new public affairs and lobbying firm affiliated with cannabis law firm Vincente Sederberg. In response to the VS Strategies report, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, a nonprofit organization that opposes legalization efforts, stated that the costs of drug use are greater than any financial revenue benefits Colorado may reap. SAM officials equated that to $3.3 billion in lost productivity, health, and safety costs in Colorado on a per capita basis. The Trump administration will soon restore the ability of police to seize suspects' money and property with federal help, but the Associated Press has learned the policy will come with a series of new provisions aimed at preventing the types of abuse that led the Obama Justice Department to severely curtail the practice. At issue is asset forfeiture, which has been criticized because it allows law enforcement to take possessions without criminal convictions or, in some cases, indictments. The policy to be rolled out Wednesday targets so-called adoptive forfeiture, which lets local authorities circumvent more restrictive state laws to seize property under federal law. The proceeds are then shared with federal counterparts. One key change will make it harder for police to seize less than $10,000 unless they have a state warrant and have made an arrest related to the seizure, have taken other contraband such as drugs along with the money, or the owner has confessed to a crime. Without at least one of those conditions, authorities will need a federal prosecutor's approval to seize it under federal law. 6 U.S. senators from hemp-growing states today introduced bipartisan legislation to ensure farmers across the West can use the water they own through private water rights to grow industrial hemp in states where it is legal. A pilot program created by the 2014 Farm Bill granted permission to state departments of agriculture to license farmers to grow industrial hemp. The Bureau of Reclamation, however, prohibits the use of federally controlled water for growing industrial hemp. These conflicting policies create confusion for farmers who grow or wish to grow industrial hemp using water from federal reservoirs. The Industrial Hemp Water Rights Act, introduced by U.S. Senators Michael Bennet of Colorado, Steve Daines of Montana, John Tester of Montana, Cory Gardner of Colorado, Ron Wyden of Oregon, and Jeff Merkley of Oregon, would clarify federal policy, ensuring owners of water rights can use their water even if it passes through federal facilities to cultivate industrial hemp. The Drug Policy Alliance Board of Directors announced its unanimous decision to appoint Maria McFarland Sanchez Moreno as the organization's new executive director. McFarland Sanchez Moreno brings nearly 13 years of international and domestic drug policy experience from her work at Human Rights Watch, where she currently serves as co-director of the U.S. program. McFarland Sanchez Moreno will succeed Drug Policy Alliance founder and former executive director Ethan Nadelman, who stepped down on May 1st after 17 years. During her tenure at Human Rights Watch, McFarland Sanchez Moreno pressed the organization to more directly address the war on drugs as a human rights issue. As a result, in 2013, Human Rights Watch became the first major international human rights organization to call for decriminalization of the personal use and possession of drugs and global drug reform more broadly.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
Hi, I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. Please help support my independent cannabis radio journalism by becoming a patron of the Marijuana Agenda. Just log on to mjagenda.com and click the Become a Patron button. For your $4.20 monthly donation, you'll keep our free live YouTube show on the air and receive your own private podcast feed of the first hour. For just $9.99, you'll receive both hours of the show and special downloads only available for VIPs. Thank you for your support.
You're not high. You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
This is high-purity THC content marijuana, and it's not a healthy substance.
Okay, maybe you're a little high.
Looking for the 420 friendliest way to visit beautiful legal Potland, Oregon?
I'm Lori Duckworth, inviting you to come stay with us at Delta 9 House and Studios.
You get your own private room with queen bed and access to our high-speed Wi-Fi, premium entertainment system, and more.
We'll even cook you breakfast. Look us up on Facebook at Delta 9 House.
That's facebook.com/Delta9House. Delta 9 House is booked through Airbnb.com. City of Portland permit number 17-159855.
The best weapon you can have in the Prohibition War is your mind. Fill your head with the knowledge you need by checking out this latest entry in the Reformer's Reader.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Reformer's Reader. I'm Russ Belville, and today, to discuss another book that's of import to the marijuana community, we've got DJ Jason Big Kush Berry joining us. He's the author of Married to Marijuana, My Love Affair with Weed and Hip Hop. And Big Kush, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Should I call you Big Kush, DJ Jason? How does this work?
I usually go by Big Kush J. That's usually
that works. Big Kush J works for me because I'm a big fan of Big Kush J's. So I think that'll work just fine. So the book is Married to Marijuana, My Love Affair with Weed and Hip Hop. And I'm a guy who came up in the late 80s, early 90s, listening to a lot of early hip hop, Cypress Hill, Wu-Tang, a lot of these groups. And of course, the Dogfather, Snoop Dogg. So, talk about the book and what led you to writing this, about this love affair between hip hop and weed.
Well, I'm sure pretty much like many of your listeners, I grew up, like yourself, within the hip hop culture. So growing up, listening to rap music and just wanting to be a part of the hip hop culture, a lot of that late 80s, early 90s rap music, like you said, that Cypress, that Wu-Tang, that Nas, was definitely heavy weed, sprinkled, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
so, weed is definitely the drug of choice for the hip hop culture, I would say. Well, it used to be anyway. So growing up, listening to the music, I just had a fascination with it. And, I went from having a fascination with the music and with weed and moving into working within the music industry. So I actually had an opportunity working in the industry with a lot of these rappers that, for a long time, I looked up to and listened to and just, loved like everybody else. I was a fan first, and then, I had a chance to work in the industry. So it just kind of blew my mind. And then
I was going to say, what was your first experience with marijuana? Did you get into hip hop first and then marijuana, or did marijuana lead you to hip hop?
Well, actually, my older brother, I happen to have an older brother who, as I'm sure a lot of kids, a lot of guys that have older siblings, they kind of, have to pal around with them or whatnot. So I was fortunate enough, I think I was 13, he was like 16, he was hanging out with his guys, my parents were like, yeah, take your brother with you, so we were off to the movies, but, their usual ritual was, to get some beer, roll up some J's and then go to the movies. So, my first experience, that was my first experience, hanging out with my older brother, going to the movie theater with him and his friends, actually, and getting high with him and his friends. And we went to go see Nightmare on Elm Street, if you could believe it, man.
Wow, that would be fun. So part of the situation when we talk about marijuana and hip hop, and especially dating back to the 90s hip hop, was a lot of it being part of gang culture, about the underground market and trying to, make a hustle, make a living. And now we've got legalization happening. And one of the complaints is that, black folks were getting busted for this in the day and still to this day. But now that it's legalized, they're getting shut out of the legal industry. Now we got guys like Snoop Dogg and Be Real that have marijuana companies and are promoting their brands. What do you think of this evolution from it being, gang culture and underground to being legal, and how has hip hop adopted to that?
Well, I think, like you said, exactly. Like, a lot of our bigger pioneers, especially on both sides within the cannabis industry as well as within the hip hop industry, have kind of stepped up and started to kind of pave the way with companies, as well as starting to, show that within our industry, hey, this is legal. And even myself, my last chapter of my book is called Black to the Future. You know what I mean? Where, I pretty much, say, hey, like, this is legal now. There's no reason why, like you said, for years, this plant was sustaining our, neighborhoods for years. You know what I mean? So now that it's becoming legal, there's no reason why we should be shut out. If anything, we should be the pioneers of this whole industry. So, I encourage, all my brothers and sisters, black, brown, Asian, yellow, whatever, let's get into it. White people too. I mean, at the end of the day, it's for everybody to love and to have. You know what I mean? It's not for just one person, but that's the nature of the plant itself. Love and to be shared. So, I think it needs to happen.
Excellent. We're speaking with Big Kush DJ Jason Berry, and his book Married to Marijuana: My Love Affair with Weed and Hip Hop. You can pick this up on Amazon and other fine book retailers. And in writing the book, is it just basically your stories, your background? What are people going to get? Give them a feel for what the contents of the book actually are.
You get a little bit of everything. You get a little bit of my story, my little rags to riches story in a sense, coming from a small town and going to the music industry and then gravitating from the music industry to the cannabis industry. You get a little bit of background of weed and hip hop and how it correlates to jazz music and just, jazz and weed back in the day. You get my stories of, me hanging out with Dr. Dre in his studio, me showing Raekwon his first grow room, hanging out with, these different guys on tour, me going to jail overseas, like, all kind of crazy shit. Like, oh yeah, like, so, if anybody knows, smuggling weed is definitely, something that we kind of do, or, as young men, we have done in the past,
It has been known to happen. So what was that small town?
Exactly.
What's that small town you come from, Big Kush Jay?
I'm originally from upstate New York, Rochester.
Okay, Rochester, New York. So,
it's up near Buffalo, yeah. It's about an hour away from Buffalo, about 2 hours away from Canada. So, yeah, we're nestled up there right now.
So it sounds as if you've got East Coast experience, you got West Coast experience. When I was coming up, that was the big deal. Tupac and Biggie, East Coast, West Coast. So let's settle a beef here. Who chiefs the hardest? Who's smoking the most weed, West Coast or East Coast?
West Coast, no doubt.
No doubt. West Side.
I'm from New York, I love NY till I die, but I'd be lying if I said that West Coast doesn't chief the most. And I think it's just the nature, it's just because it's more readily available. You don't have to, cower and in your basement or, where, you could almost, literally smoke walking down the street here, there's smoke everywhere. There's weed everywhere,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's quite a difference from, back in the day when you'd see those first Snoop Dogg videos or Dr. Dre videos coming on TV, and they'd blur out the pot leaf logo they'd have, and they'd backmask if they said endo, right? It had to be so censored.
Right.
And now today it's so open. Is there anything you miss about the old days and the way it was when things were illegal?
Well, what's funny is it's like, it's like I still kind of look at it and, it's legal in some cities and some states or whatnot, but it's still very illegal in a lot of other states. So in a lot of, like New York, Georgia, just a lot of other areas is still, very illegal. So, a lot of other people are still feeling or still having to do the same things that they've done in the past. So I don't, it's still not fully legal. And then not to mention, it's still not fully commercial either. Like, we're not exactly buying weed cigarettes like, like Newports at this point yet either. So, I look at that as being, that's legalization. That's, when it gets fully corporate and all that whole side of it. And then when looking back at it, like, man, I remember when I used to buy a bag and roll my own joints and blunts and whatever, then it's like, wow, the contrast, I'm sure it'd be like, but yeah, I think right now we're in such a sweet spot within time, within the industry, and just, it's definitely a time to be nurtured in a sense. It's like it's that baby infancy stages. Like, you don't want to just go by too fast, because we'll never have this time again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Again, the book is Married to Marijuana, My Love Affair with Weed and Hip Hop by DJ Jason Big Kush J Barry. And this is a great read. I've checked out the online version of this. I was able to download. You can find this on Amazon, get it on your Kindle. And was there any difficulty in writing the book? Were there some things that were hard to reveal or that maybe would surprise us in this book?
Yeah. I'm not a writer, first off.
that there would be something to overcome, I suppose.
That was a very huge obstacle to overcome, first of all. Obviously I can write, but, I'm more of I write proposals, I'm a businessman, that kind of thing. So having the ability to write and wanting to write, and wanting to get these stories out, was one thing, but then being transparent was something else that I kind of had to not necessarily overcome, but just to, you take that deep breath. It's like almost jumping, like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this, like, and then you do it, you know what I mean? Or you don't do it, you know what I mean? So it was kind of like that vibe, like, the roller coaster kind of vibe. Like, even right now, it's like, doing promo or speaking with you, interview about a book that I wrote. I never wrote a book before, so this is all brand new to me, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you're doing fantastic. And one last question before we let you go, and that is a concern I always had when I'd see rappers, Snoop Dogg, Cypress Hill, guys making a lot of money off of rapping about weed, about making art about weed, and then I never saw them kicking back into trying to make it legal. Like when California went for Prop 64, it was Sean Parker, the Facebook billionaire, kicking in the 6 figures to make it happen, the 7 figures to make it happen, and Be Real from Cypress Hill is actually opposing legalization, right? So to me, do you think the hip hop community, especially these artists, freaking Dre's a billionaire now, aren't doing enough to try to make it legal and to try to free more people to have access to this plant?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes you're giving artists a little bit too much credit. You know what I mean? They're artists. They're artists. They hang out late at night in the studio. They're creative people. And if you've been around creative people sometimes have bipolar, personalities where they're into some things one day and then the next day they don't like it. They're not into it. Or I'm not saying everybody's like this by any means, but I'm just saying, they're artists. Some artists aren't businessmen. They don't see the future. They don't see the bigger picture. They just see what's literally in front of them, or are able to just kind of live in their own bubble sometimes. So sometimes it's kind of art for artists to kind of step out of their little individual bubbles and see what's kind of really going on and say, this is how I want to impact society in a sense, I mean, so maybe some are doing it behind closed doors because we all know still, like, anytime that you step up, maybe sometimes, as a black artist in this society, you get a target on your back.
Yeah, it's true.
So, maybe it's the smartest thing to step up and say, yeah, I advocate, marijuana legalization, because then maybe, the DOJ starts to, bring your file up and say, well, what's this guy talking about? And why is he so adamant about this? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. So, hey, so there's maybe a variety of different reasons, but nonetheless, we're here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And that's not to discount artists that are speaking honestly about what's happening in their world and what they know about
not at all.
Marijuana. Not at all.
Exactly.
That helps
right.
immensely. That helps immensely. And I want to give my thanks to you, Big Kush J, for doing the same thing by writing this book, Married to Marijuana, My Love Affair with Weed and Hip Hop. You are telling another one of these stories and letting people know it's okay to talk about this and that cool, accomplished people are cannabis consumers. Thanks so much for joining us here on Reformers Reader. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Let me, please, everybody go to marriedtomarijuana.net. Check out the little blurb of the book. You can also check out the documentary that I have with me, which is called with the same name, Married to Marijuana, that you can find on YouTube as well as on the site. And it's a documentary with me and with interviewing, all types of rappers, smoking weed with them, Schoolboy Q, Currency, Method Man, Raekwon, Be Real, just a host of rappers. So that's that. Check me out on my social media at Big Kush J, as well as at Married to MJ. So thank you. I appreciate everything, Russ. Appreciate it.
MarriedToMarijuana.net will have all the information people need. Thank you for joining us again, and good luck with the book.
Thanks.
This episode was produced as part of the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville, the daily news and interview podcast covering the world of medical cannabis, adult marijuana, industrial hemp, and spiritual ganja. MJAgenda.com.
If
If you work in the cannabis industry, consume marijuana, or just support freedom, you need to know about breaking policy news that affects you. Marijuana Moment is the daily newsletter that helps you stay on top of all the latest and most important state, federal, and international cannabis developments. Brought to you by longtime legalization activist Tom Angel, Marijuana Moment puts a concise yet comprehensive overview of cannabis news in your inbox early every weekday morning. Wake up to Marijuana Moment and rest assured you'll be ready for the cannabis news that's driving the day. Subscribe now at marijuanamoment.net.
The marijuana agenda. Like the liberal agenda, but with profits. Ka-ching.
I'm Russ Belville with the Marijuana Agenda. Join me every 2 weeks for Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine from the Burning Issues podcast on CannabisRadio.com. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about. And now, in the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Marijuana Agenda presents this anti-drug public service announcement.
Hey, Joey! I got some stuff you just gotta try. What is it? Pot. You know, marijuana. Oh, well, I don't know. What, chicken?
Joey's in a jam. What should he do? Cake.
Get a pizza!
Excellent. Get a pizza. Get real.
Get out of there!
You got it. Let's see if Joey's that smart.
I'm not chicken. You're a turkey.
He's right. Drug dealers are dorks. Don't even talk to him. Cowabunga!
To combat this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Marijuana Agenda every weekday at mjagenda.com. Hi, I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. If you're a cannabis brand looking to build trust and awareness within the community, consider becoming a sponsor of this program. Your message will be seen and heard by the most dedicated followers of marijuana policy reform, who are loyal and supportive of those brands that give back to the community. Just log on to mjagenda.com and click the Become a Patron button to learn how your brand can also be featured in my live nationwide appearances. Thank you for your support.
The marijuana agenda. Like the conservative agenda. Minus the hypocrisy.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Norman. And I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact NORML at norml.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
Welcome to the Southeast Cannabis Chronicle, dedicated to the promotion of marijuana activism throughout the great American South, from Louisiana to Florida and as far north as Kentucky to West Virginia. Now, grab some sweet tea to go with your THC. It's time for the Southeast Cannabis Chronicle.
Keeping with our spirit of nonpartisan politics, we've already heard from a Libertarian, we've heard from a Republican, now we're going to hear from the Democratic state senator whose district is up in Gwinnett County. He's been responsible for starting and sponsoring so many medical marijuana laws, referendum laws, and laws that would allow for sale of marijuana in the United States. I've got a list of state resolution, Senate resolution, and Senate bills so long, it basically looks like assembler code. So I'm not even going to go into that. Hopefully he can shed some light on that. Please welcome to the stage the one, the only State Senator Kurt Thompson, ladies and gentlemen. Kurt Thompson.
So, thanks. I won't keep y'all long. I know this is a day for fellowship and work, but it's also a day to remember with it being 420 or 420. It's a day to also remember that that we're working on something here that's bigger than just having a rally in a park. It's actually about changing laws. 2 years ago, I was the first elected official in Georgia to propose a statute for a full medical marijuana legislation, and I was the first state senator to propose that Georgia have a referendum to go to a full legalization with a Colorado-style regulated system. There was a rally like this when that happened back then, 2 years ago, and I was the only elected official here. Now you've got rallies in 2 different parks, and you've got different elected officials here. I see Mayor Terry was going to be here from Clarkston, but he had some problems at his home with a fallen tree. You've got Senator Vincent Fort. I see him down there, and you've got others. So this is moving. It's building and moving. And yes, those bills had to be reintroduced this year, but take a look. We do have a resolution again this year for calling for a full referendum for full legalization, the way Colorado does, and the way 8 other states have gone, but using the Colorado model. We've got a statute, the enabling legislation, because when you have a referendum, if it passed, you have to have legislation to say, well, what are we going to do, of how Georgia would implement a Colorado-style system. And then we do have the full medical marijuana, the way, say, the way California or Arizona or Florida has. That statute as well has also been reintroduced. And so we're hoping to get hearings, but we won't have hearings, we won't have votes unless y'all are actually working on it. So please try to figure out, please know who your state rep, who your state senator is. Please be contacting them and make sure they know that they have people who are in support of reforming our state's cannabis and marijuana laws in their district, and that they vote and that you vote, because that's the only way you're going to get things changed, is to remind folks that you're there, you're in their district, and you vote. And then if they won't support you, find a candidate that will. So with that, I'll just leave y'all, but thanks again for having me out. Thanks.
All right, keep it going for Senator Kurt Thompson, ladies and gentlemen. And keep it going for you folks who are coming out here in the middle of the day. Keep it going for the dog in the corner who's got to be hotter than even I am. That's got to be tough. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are sort of blessed to have a special guest here today. He is the senator for the 39th district in the state of Georgia, but he's also running for mayor of Atlanta, and man, is he dressed like it. I don't think I can pull that outfit off, but it works well on you, sir. Definitely. Please welcome to the stage Senator Vincent Fort.
Good afternoon. I'm one of the people, along with Kurt Thompson, Senator Thompson, that was at one rally. Then we rushed over to this rally to be with you. And I want to thank Kurt Thompson for his leadership on these issues. Give him another round of applause. When I announced for mayor last November 10th, I proposed the decriminalization of marijuana in the city of Atlanta. I did it because I studied the issue, and I found that marijuana arrests are the gateway, not to harder drugs, and that myth, but it's the gateway to mass incarceration. In the city of Atlanta and in Fulton County, where the city council and the county commission are both dominated by African Americans, controlled by African Americans. 93% of the arrests in Fulton County are African Americans. And 97%, in a study that was done in Atlanta, in a part of Atlanta, 97% of arrests were African Americans. And they tended to be young African American males. It is a barrier. That arrest for a small amount of marijuana is a barrier to progress in people's lives. It's a barrier to jobs. It's a barrier to education. It's a barrier to the future. I cannot, in good conscience, abide by that, and I know you can't. I know you want to stand up against it. And that's why when the city council picked up on it, and there was a ordinance introduced to decriminalize marijuana in the city of Atlanta, I supported it. As a candidate for mayor, I pledged to do it when I became mayor. But I don't have pride of authorship. It's the right thing to do, and it ought to be done as soon as possible. And that's why this rally is so important, because we're at a crossroads in decriminalization in the city of Atlanta. We're at a crossroads because on last Monday, the city council sent back the decriminalization ordinance from the full council to committee. That's right. But I'm like Barack Obama, don't boo, vote and fight. So the ordinance was sent back to committee. We know what that means. Some people are delaying it so they can what? Kill it. Well, we're here to say to the city council, we're not going to allow you to be cowardly. If you don't do it, we're going to change city council. If you don't, see, and part of me says, I don't care if they do it or not, because guess what? When I'm mayor of the city of Atlanta, it's going to happen. But I do care. I do care. I want them to pass it as soon as possible. Because in the intervening time, while they fiddle, hundreds, if not thousands, of young people are being arrested and having their lives ruined. So I do, regardless of what I'm proposing, it would be the best thing to do now for the people of the city of Atlanta. So we're going to be in the Public Safety Committee meeting next week. Does anybody know when that is? I think it's Wednesday, but I'm sure we'll get the word out. We're going to be in the City Council Committee next week. We're going to be at the City Council meeting the week after, and we're going to be wherever we need to be, for however long we need to be there to get this done. So thank you. Go to my Twitter, Fort for Atlanta. Go to my Facebook, Fort for Atlanta. Stay in touch. We're going to win. We're going to win this November. We're going to decriminalize marijuana. We're going to make Atlanta a city that works for everybody, not just some folks. So God bless you, and thank you for everything you do.
All right, keep it going for Senator Vincent Fort, ladies and gentlemen. Mayoral candidate in Atlanta, the kind of mayoral candidate that folks here definitely like to see. Probably the first politician I have ever seen publicly admit that cannabis is a gateway drug, not to stronger drugs, but to mass incarceration. I always considered a gateway drug to deep fried Twinkies and playing Donkey Kong on your parents' the sofa in your parents' basement, which as a parent is something I'm very concerned about. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's keep this thing going with your very next speaker, the head of Compassionate Atlanta. Please welcome Gareth Young, ladies and gentlemen, Gareth Young.
Hello, everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to be here talking to you all today. I'll start with a correction. I'm not the head of Compassionate Atlanta. I'm a board member for Compassionate Atlanta, so let the record stand corrected. So I will start by talking about Compassionate Atlanta and what that is. Most of you probably don't know. Compassionate Atlanta comes out of a movement, a compassion movement, founded on the Golden Rule. Its foundation comes out of faith teachings, where the underpinning of the world's great faith traditions is the Golden Rule. It was promulgated initially by Karen Armstrong in a TED Talk. She won a bunch of money, and she then wrote a charter for compassion. And so there are organizations that have sprung up around the globe based on compassion. Compassionate Atlanta is one of them. It is a movement that's taking root in and around us. Clarkston, the city of Clarkston, has signed up to as a compassionate city. The Atlanta City Council has also adopted the Charter for Compassion, and we have 100 or so corporate partners and lots of individuals that signed the Compassionate Charter. The foundation of the Charter for Compassion is really, as I say, the Golden Rule. It's about equity. It's about fairness and looking for the humanity in others. It is about seeking to understand first. We're starting to get to why we are here today talking at a cannabis marijuana rally, 420 rally. It's about understanding, really listening and understanding to what's going on here. As Vincent Fort said before, there is a justice problem here. The Compassionate Atlanta and the Compassionate Movement would take a much more nuanced and balanced approach to justice and favor restorative justice rather than punitive justice. And in a city which is approximately 50% African American, to have way over 90% of arrests African American for marijuana possession, the vast majority of those, something over 90% of 1,000 or so arrests in the last couple of years, were for less than an ounce. That's horrible. And the penalty for that? Large fines, hundreds of dollars, up to $1,000, time in jail, a criminal record that lasts the rest of your life. So you've got young people who are being penalized for the rest of their life for something that is a recreational habit or a medicinal habit, and in massively disproportionate numbers. So echoing the gateway drug point, this is not a gateway drug to other drugs. This is a gateway drug to prison. And if you line it up against other recreational drugs, and obviously I think here of cigarettes and alcohol, we've got gateway to road traffic accidents, gateway to violence, gateway to cancer. Is this just? Is this fair? Is this equitable? I would argue not. And it's also, obviously, it's got medicinal purposes, and there's a story, I don't know how many of you, probably all of you saw the last week tonight, a week or so ago, where Brandon Coates was a case. He was, I'm going to wait for the plane to go over. Brandon Coates was a Dish employee who took medicinal marijuana. It helped him considerably, but notwithstanding that, he had a drug test at work and he lost his job. Again, is this equitable? We're looking here at true justice, at restorative justice, at proportionate justice, but that's not what's happening. There are changes happening at the state and local level. There's a lot in the newspapers, a lot in the press to suggest that this is happening fairly fast. As we just heard, it's not happening anywhere near fast enough. And even to the extent it does happen at the state and local level, we still have marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance at the federal level. And so at the federal level, no matter what you do at the state and local level, you've got federal penalties invoked. So there needs to be a lot more done from a justice standpoint, from a compassionate standpoint, to treat all citizens equally, to recognize the disproportion of punishment that is being levied on young folks, on African American folks through use of marijuana, and to do that both at the state and at the federal levels. Thank you.
This episode was produced as part of the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville, the daily news and interview podcast covering the world of medical cannabis, adult marijuana, industrial hemp, and spiritual ganja. MJAgenda.com.
The Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association and the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit MJBA.net for more details.
The Marijuana Agenda. Like the pharmaceutical agenda, without all the side effects, overdose deaths, insurance.
Side effects may include nausea, dry mouth, and constipation. Dry mouth, constipation, indigestion, and abdominal pain,
which can occur without warning and may cause death.
I'm Russ Belville with the Marijuana Agenda. Join me every 2 weeks for Police for Reform with Law Enforcement Action Partnership. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about.
total war against public enemy number one.
10 federal criminal penalties for 1 ounce of marijuana.
Marijuana is probably the most dangerous drug.
Legalization is just another word for surrender.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
This is not medicine. This is a Cheech and Chong show.
Encourage people to use less drugs.
I am ill.
That was the point.
I think it would be a mistake to legalize.
Negative reports coming out of Colorado.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Today in the rant, we take a look at a report coming from the Baltimore Sun, and it involves a drug arrest. Back in January, a man was arrested because police recovered evidence of drugs in a backyard that had been allegedly thrown out by the man. And they arrested the man, and he sat in a jail cell on $50,000 bail. Now, being poor, he couldn't afford the money to get out on bail, so that's why he sat in a jail cell for 6 months. Also being poor, he was given a public defender, and these public defenders are often way overworked, have far too many cases on their plate. But the public defender finally got around to taking a look at the reports about his client being arrested for this alleged drug possession that was thrown away in the backyard that the police were able to find. And doing his due diligence, decided he'd like a look at their body cams. Now, this is a requirement in Baltimore because they've been chastised before by the Justice Department when the Justice Department actually cared about those things. We'll also remember Baltimore is the place where Freddie Gray was killed in police custody when they gave him a rough ride in the back of a van. So the public defender gets the body cam video from the cops that they're required to turn on whenever they have an investigation or are working with complaints or have a confrontation. And he was shocked to discover what the body cam evidence showed. And I want to switch over to our video window, and I'll just run this through. Now, understand that the first part of this body cam video has no audio. I'll explain why after the video. Has no audio, but then you'll hear the audio kick in about 30 seconds when they make the discovery of the drugs. So we'll switch over to that cam and let you run that video. Silent at the moment. You see trash strewn. You see a cop messing around with some piece of wood or something, and there's two other cops watching him there, and they're in the back alley. Now he walks out of the back alley with the body cam video still going, and he looks back to see the other two cops coming back out of that back alley, fumbles with his hand in front of the cam. You can see him trying to turn on his body cam. There comes the audio as the body cam's turned on. You hear the cops laughing in the background, by the way. He comes back to the place where he had been standing, looking around, picks up a couple other pieces of garbage, turns over a rock, picks up that piece of wood that he had been seen at the beginning of the video putting down after rummaging through some garbage. And what do you know? Miraculously finds some drugs in a soup can. What do you got? Says the cops, who had been watching him put the drugs in a soup can earlier in the video. There's the cops in the back. Now he's walking back out with the evidence, and the video fades to black. Now, let's go back and take a look at this. Now, the reason why the video didn't have audio in the first 30 seconds is because the cop got caught by not knowing how the body cam footage, the body cam worked on his uniform there. The way they are manufactured is that they are always running a video capture, but it's on kind of a flash. It's kind of on a temporary memory. Then, when the cops activate their body cam, the video, the last 30 seconds of video, which has no audio on it, the last 30 seconds of video before they turn the cam on, gets captured and saved by the camera. So there's like a 30-second prelude to when the cop turns on the body cam. So what we have in this video is clear evidence of cops trying to manipulate how their body cam footage works by setting up a scene and then going into the scene with the body cam video on in order to make their supposed discovery. Now, I'll do this frame by frame so you can kind of get a look at what's going on. So at the very beginning of the video is where you see the officer's hand, and it's kind of obscured by something blue in the way, maybe his own uniform somehow, but you can see his hand has the bag of drugs right there. You can see the bag of drugs in about the third, fourth frame, and then he looks down as he's got the can. There it is. The soup can is in his hand with the bag of drugs poking out of it. You can clearly see it in the body cam footage. And he's placing it there on the ground, kind of underneath amongst the garbage. And then he's moving the ladder or piece of wood, whatever that is. He's moving that down to cover up the can of drugs. And this is all in the 30 seconds before the body cam, before the cop knows that the body cam is turned on. So then you see him turning, and there's the other two cops, and they're not just, it looks like a blue, what the blue thing must have been from a hoodie. Okay. So now he's turning back, looking at the other two cops who are just standing there, not looking at him, watching him place the drug evidence underneath the piece of wood right there where it can easily be found. So the two cops that had been watching still stand there and let him walk by, let body cam cop walk by and go out to the main sidewalk. He turns around to see them follow him back out. Now he's putting his hand up to the body cam to turn it on. The other two cops are knowing exactly what he's doing. They can see him fumbling with his body cam to turn it on. Now notice the other officer's body cam, this Simoyan or whatever his name, Simon Yan, whatever, and the first cop, the taller cop coming out, you see the body cams on their uniforms. They don't seem to be on. Well, wait a minute. There looks to be a green light on the first officer there, maybe. The second officer, his cam, well, I don't know if that's a light or that's just a button, but I can't tell if their cams are on, to tell you the truth. But then we get to the 30-second mark, and that's when the audio kicks in.
Check here. Hold on.
And you hear that laugh from one of the cops behind him?
Was that 30? Yo.
And look at him like modeling for the camera, like he's looking at these drugs as if, oh gee, I can't tell what this stuff is.
Not yet.
And they're laughing again as he comes out.
Here's
so
the new pillow
this is
everyone
clearly
is talking about.
what is
The
going on
pancake
all
pillow.
across America. And pardon me for the web ad kicking in, but this is happening all across America. Police departments everywhere are doing this kind of stuff. This is just the one time they got caught doing it. And my only fear about this is that this won't lead to fixing the problem, at least what we would consider fixing the problem. This will just lead to the cops fixing what they consider the problem to be. I satirically tweeted out that all this taught cops is that, wait 45 seconds before you turn the camera on. Just wait 45 seconds. Wait till that 30-second video cache flushes. That's all this incident is going to lead to. I'll tell you what it should lead to is these police body cams being streamed live on the internet every minute that these cops are on duty. Well, what about the police privacy? Oh my goodness, we wouldn't. To hell with the police privacy. We give the police special dispensation in our society to carry around guns, to carry around tasers, to carry around batons. We give them the green light to use deadly force against the citizenry when they deem it necessary. And from what we've seen from our judicial system, however they deem it necessary is pretty much good. As long as it's not videotape shooting a guy running away 18 feet away in the back, it's pretty much anything goes. So to hell with their privacy, to hell with their police unions. Put this footage on every minute you're on the job. Put that footage on the internet. Let Reddit boards be monitoring their local police departments to see how they're engaging with citizenry, to see how much time they're wasting at the Dunkin' Donuts, to see how much porn they're downloading on their laptops, whatever the hell it might be. And especially cases like this, when they're planting evidence on innocent suspects, people considered innocent until proven guilty. They have a hunch. They think they're a bad guy. They don't want to have to go through the trouble of obeying the Constitution, so they just want to plant some evidence and try to get away with it. And where are these alleged good cops? These good cops could step up anytime, but I saw 2 cops watching another cop be corrupt and do nothing about it. And this story, folks, gets worse. I've been following one of the reporter who broke this story out of Baltimore Sun, and he's been tweeting all about this particular story. And one of the disgusting elements of this story is that after he found the videotape, he went back to the state's attorney. I think it was a state's attorney, ASA, assistant state's attorney, went back to the state's attorney to confront him with this tape that the cop had planted this evidence on his client. His client, who, by the way, had been sitting in jail for 6 months now. 6 months sitting there on a $50,000 bond. The prosecution had been trying to push a plea deal with the guy. They wanted to put him in prison for 12 years. 12 years based on a cop planting something in a soup can. The prosecution was negotiating down to 3 years plus time served. 3 years with time served included, right? So the 6 months would count off, and he'd serve another 2.5 years. That was the generous offer from the prosecutor. We'll cut it down to just, another 2.5 years of your life. The defense attorney, the public defender, brings us tape and says, look at this tape. And he walks him through the tape. And in the notes that was in the tweet that the Baltimore Sun reporter put out, he in his notes is saying, and as I walked him through the video the second time, he noticed what he hadn't seen before, which I imagine is that the cop had planted the drugs, and said, all right, he'd negotiate it down to a guilty plea with time served. The prosecutor still thought it would be a good deal for the innocent man who had drugs planted on him to plead guilty to a crime he didn't commit, and the 6 months that you spent in jail, well, that's enough. We'll let you go now. We'll let you go with a drug conviction on your record. Now, fortunately, the prosecutor in asking about the case had taken this up the chain of command, and the rest of the chain of command recognized that, holy shit, as was quoted in the tweet, a shitstorm is coming regarding this particular case, and they dropped the charges against the guy. And as far as I can tell, he's free at this point. But that's just unbelievable gall from the prosecution to think the man should still be pleading guilty. And then there's the question about the body cams and whether or not they were turned on time, and the fact that 2 days or 2 or 3 days later, after this had been revealed, that same cop who had done the planting of the drugs, allegedly, that same cop was called to testify in other cases. In fact, that cop has testified in like 54 different cases. And the other 2 cops have testified in plenty of cases as well. How many other cases have people gone down for serious time because of these bad cops? Well, apparently the good cops aren't going to step up. Apparently the good cops aren't going to cross the thin blue line because blue lives matter. That's right, blue lies matter. They're not going to cross the line, so screw them, put them online. Let's put the watchful eye of little brother on big brother. Let's have every one of us with access to an app where we can pull up any cop's body cam at any time they're working. What's the objection to that? We might actually see what you guys do. Really, if the job is, it's so tough being a police officer, you don't know the kind of dangers we face and how much we have to deal with. Hey, if that's all true, put it online. We'd be glad to watch. You'd get a lot of sympathy, wouldn't you? Stay tuned for Hour 2, folks.
Follow MJ Agenda on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, and follow MJ Agenda Show on Twitter. Learn more at mjagenda.com.
For everyone here at Delta 9 Studios, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
You plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.